Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Resolve. In the last episode, we finally started the second day of the trial of this case. And we are here now. Let me just get out of this the screen for a second. We have already cross-examined Mr. Drabber. We have pressed all the statements, and I'm kind of puzzled what to do. I will be open. I will be honest, guys. I really don't know what to do. But this first of all, I thought this was kind of fishy because when we press, you would see that Dunosuke would say, you would need someone else. Maybe there could be something like a decoy or whatever. But here, Mr. Drabber states all the spectators saw the birdcage appear above their heads and then crash headfirst into the crystal tower. And if we have a look at the birdcage, the wooden birdcage, it crashed down with the victim inside into the crystal tower, causing damage to its base. So that conflicts with what he says, I think. So therefore, I'm just gonna present that. Let's do that.
Objection!
And I was right, apparently. Cool! Okay, we've examined the birdcage that crashed into the crystal tower ourselves. As you can see, the cage, which is a wooden construction, has sustained damage in one particular spot.
Following the explosion, it fell some 30 feet into the glass of the crystal tower. That level of damage is to be expected, surely.
I agree, the damage itself is entirely understandable. What doesn't make sense is the location of that damage. All the breakages in the wood are at the base of the birdcage, not the top.
What are you saying? That's the opposite of where they should be.
That's right, my lord. The birdcage that was at the scene is damaged at its base. So we have reports of the birdcage falling headlong into the crystal tower, yet the damage is at the bottom. The only way to reconcile these two facts is to accept that there were two birdcages in play that day, which were at some point switched. Switching during what wasn't a scientific experiment at all, but an elaborate piece of stage trickery.
God. Good gracious, explain yourself, witness. If we examine the facts, there's only one logical conclusion we can draw. The damage on the base of the birdcage clearly indicates that it crashed tail first into the tower.
Objection!
But multiple witnesses' reports claim it fell head first.
The birdcage materialized in the sky next to a balloon flying over the stage, following a spontaneous explosion at any altitude of some 60 feet above ground level,
Which is approximately 18 meters.
It then proceeded to fall some 30 feet into the crystal tower in the ensuing deflagration. Witness reports amidst such chaos are notoriously unreliable.
Objection!
But the victim's neck was broken.
Objection!
He plummeted 30 feet inside a heavy wooden cage. However he fell, it would be unsurprising to find one or two of his vertebrae crushed. A riveting scientific analysis of events from the prosecution there. Though to be even more rigorous, you would have to say it was only one vertebra, actually. He wasn't quite for long.
I find it hard to see what's motivating Lord Von Zix. This witness is clearly a swindler, and one who deceived a personal friend of his.
If you're going to establish this deception, do it right.
Sorry?
I feel like that's the undertone here.
Ah, yes, and there's one more point. The defense appears to have forgotten. It obviously wasn't a trick, as a certain truth very plainly demonstrates.
What?
It seems to me that the cross-examination had better continue until we resolve this matter. Mr. Drabber, you will amend your testimony with details of this truth.
Of course, we must treat the matter scientifically after all.
Ah, I nearly had him there.
The kinesis clearly took place because there was nowhere else 30 feet high for the bird to have fallen from.
What? The kinesis clearly took place because there's nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from. Okay, let's press. What do you mean? Thank you for asking, Ryunosuke. I have no clue what he's talking about.
Well, before the demonstration began, the victim was alive on stage in front of the audience.
Yes, there are lots of witnesses who saw Mr. Asman on the experimentation stage, that's true.
And the victim's neck broke as a result of an impact following a fall. Logically, therefore, the victim must have fallen from somewhere.
The balloon that exploded was at an altitude of 60 feet. The point of impact on the tower was 30 feet up. That difference of 30 feet is therefore the total distance the birdcage fell.
And there's no other location from which the cage could have fallen that distance if it didn't drop out of the sky. Ergo, the victim himself must have been beamed from the stage into the sky above the crystal tower. A trenchant scientific analysis. Dear me, every time I hear it explained, it sounds increasingly possible. Oh yes, it's all very well thought out.
Certainly all the spectators on the day saw it. The birdcage plummeting 30 feet through the air, I mean.
Irritatingly, yes. Well... this is fishy. And if we have a look here, I'm just gonna present that photograph. I think you just saw it, guys. You see, there is this hole, and it seems like a contraption so the birdcage can fall down. And I think this is what we are supposed to present here.
Objection!
Okay, I was wrong. Surely something about that last day seems odd, doesn't it?
Would you care to mull over precisely what you find odd about it in your return journey to Japan?
I wouldn't be back to give the court an answer for about 4 months, though.
Rest assured, we should be happy to carry proceedings forward in your absence, counsel.
He sounds serious. I have to prove my worth before he really does send me back home. Well, what is it then? What are we supposed to do? But this is to be presented with something, right? Are we supposed to show this then? I'm really puzzled. Okay. The kinesis clearly took place because there was nowhere else 30 feet high for the birdcage to have fallen from. The question is that 30 feet? This can't be the thing. This can't be it. This can't be it. Not the photograph, not the autopsy report, not the screwdriver. It's not the balloon. It's not the wooden birdcage. We just showed that as evidence. I don't think there's anything else. That it's not this? What does it say here? I'm gonna give it a try. Okay, it was the sketch. Okay, sure. This is a diagram of the experimentation stage and its surroundings. We know that somehow the birdcage appeared in the mid-air before falling down into the crystal tower. A fall about 30 feet, or 9 meters. However, if we examine the diagram carefully, you'll see that there is one other possible location from which the birdcage could have fallen. The same distance of 30 feet.
No.
Well, it appears the defense has a possible explanation to put forward. Go ahead, counsel.
Yes, my lord. Of course.
You will indicate the place to which you are referring in this, on this same diagram. The alternative location from which the birdcage could have possibly fallen the requisite 30 feet. And it is actually here, I think.
Take that!
The place I'm referring to is here.
But that's where the birdcage would have been to begin with.
Which is exactly the point, my lord. Yes, the birdcage was on the machine on the stage. But what we must also consider is the height of the stage itself.
Go on, counsel.
It turns out that the experimentation stage was built at a considerable height above ground level. If you look at the diagram, in fact, you'll see it's at about the same height above the ground as the balloon was above the crash site. Sorry, guys. When the experiment got underway, the machine and the birdcage were engulfed in steam. At that moment, the floor of the stage gave way, and we assumed there to be a void underneath. This birdcage and the one seen by the audience would have fallen almost exactly the same distance. Once again, my lord, this all points to the fact that there was not one birdcage, but two.
Objection!
My learned friend has no evidence that the stage had such a contrivance in its design.
Someone is responsible for the criminal destruction of the Kinesis machine itself, it's true. However, the stage still stands. And take a moment to look at the photographic print of the scene following yesterday's explosion.
Good lord, the metal grill that formed the floor of the machine is undone.
Yes, most likely blown open by the force of the explosion that destroyed the rest of the machine. The defense calls for the space below the stage to be investigated immediately. Mr. Drabber, it was you who built the Kinesis machine, which means that it was you who built the two bird cages that were used to carry out this deception. Whether Professor Hairbrain's hypothesis is sound or not makes no difference, because it's the construction of this machine that matters, a machine designed to take Mr. Asmund's life. And lay the blame firmly at the Professor's door, something that could only have been carried out by you, Mr. Enoch Drabber!
Objection!
If my learned friend has reached the end of his wild assertions, the prosecution would like to crush the defense's argument slowly, but surely.
What?
Your argument fails to hold water on 2 counts.
2?
Firstly, before and after the experiment, this witness went nowhere near the Kinesis machine. Every relevant member of the staff from the exhibition has attested to that.
And I believe members of Scotland Yard have also been on watch duty at every public experiment.
In other words, Mr. Drabber had no opportunity to switch the alleged pair of bird cages.
Objection!
But I've already explained why he wouldn't have needed to.
The nonsense with the crossbow, that doesn't bolster your case at all. The man who disappeared from the stage and the man who crashed into the tower are one and the same. The forensic investigation team's report is unequivocal on that point. And the second flaw in your assertion is a distinct lack of motive. Why would this man have wanted to take the victim's life? He had no reason to do so.
A motive? Do I have to think of everything myself?
I have here a contract provided by the witness.
What contract is this, Lord Von Zieks?
The contract into which Mr. Drebber entered with the victim, Mr. Asman. It reads, Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income.
30%? Certainly very favorable contractual conditions. But there was one very important provision bolted onto that clause.
What provision?
Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right on condition that both contracting parties are alive.
In other words, if either of us were to die, the contract would become null and void. So you see, I had nothing to gain from Mr. Asman's death. The diametric opposite, in fact.
Need I say more? The witness had neither an opportunity nor a reason to commit the alleged crime. In short, the possibility of Mr. Drebber having done as you suggest is nil.
It seems the defense's assertion was somewhat wide of the mark. Lord Von Zieks, you will submit the contract as evidence, please.
Drebber's contract has been entered into the court record. Drebber's contract, the contract between Mr. Asman and Mr. Drebber detailing the terms by which they would profit from the kinesis experiment. It's true. If Drebber had no opportunity to switch to the birdcage under the stage with the one in the crystal tower, he couldn't have done it. And in any case, I have no idea what his motive might have been. There is one aspect of your argument that still holds true, however. There were 2 bird cages. The prosecution is unable to deny that. So I'm sure you're on the right lines, Mr. Nutwater. And I have no doubt there are other aspects of your assertion that are undeniable truths too.
Well, it would seem that the defense has no rejoinder to offer.
Okay, before we do that, I want to have a look at the contract. The investor, Mr. Odious Man, hereby enters into contract with the provider, Mr. Enoch Drebber, to fund the labor and materials for the construction of a super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine. Mr. Drebber is to receive 30% of all remunerations from government grants or other income. Mr. Drebber may only uphold this right in condition that both contracting parties are alive. Okay, so we know that actually already. Sorry for wasting your time, guys.
Well, I must say I'm a little surprised. I came here to testify about the machine I built, and instead my reputation is defiled. But the prosecution's counter set the record straight, I think. It is impossible that I'm the culprit.
Objection!
At the beginning of this trial, we believed that there was only one birdcage. Yet now we know there must have been 2. In other words, there was more to the demonstration than we realized at first. I think it's abundantly clear that the same applies to the culprit.
Get to the point.
The stage demonstration was constructed and set up in its entirety by you, Mr. Drebber. Therefore, it's inconceivable that you had no hand in the events that transpired. observed circumstances means it's impossible that you could have carried out the crime yourself. It points to the fact that someone else was involved.
Someone else? Counsel, are you suggesting?
Yes, my lord. Mr. Drebber had an accomplice.
Objection!
An accomplice now? Well, then I presume you're prepared for what's to come. Now that you're accusing not only this witness, but someone else of the most serious of crimes. If these accusations turn out to be false, then make no mistake. The prosecution will demand an equally serious punishment for your slander.
Well, counsel, do you intend to pursue this course and formally accuse another party of involvement in this matter?
What do I do here? At the moment, this is a little more than a hunch on my part. I don't know for sure if Drebber had an accomplice, or even if he really is the culprit here. One way or another, though, I have to make my position clear, as a lawyer. So what's my stance going to be? Did Drebber have an accomplice, or not? Well, I do think that he did. And I know this sounds kind of strange, but I think that he had... Okay, this sounds a little strange, but I don't think that we can back down. First things first, I don't think we can back down. We have to name an accomplice. The defense is ready to name Mr. Drebber's accomplice. Somehow the two bird cages must have been switched. Everything points to that. Yet according to the coroner's report, that's not a possibility. And that is the thing. But that inconsistency itself is a clue. Exactly. Counsel.
My lord? You have received a stark warning already. If you are nevertheless determined, then I must now ask you to identify this alleged accomplice by name. So, your answer please. Who do you claim to have been Mr. Drebber's accomplice?
Well, and since we actually got the clue here, we already got... I think it's Courtney Scythe. If the coroner already... If she faked the autopsy report, I mean, it could be, and she is kind of sus, so let's present Mr. Sith. The name of the person in question is...
What's wrong, my Nipponese friend? Surely fear doesn't bind your tongue now. It's a little late for that.
Of course, I'm afraid. After all, naming her in this capacity is definitely going to make waves. A lot of waves. I could very well turn every single person in this courtroom against me.
I'm sure it will be all right, Mr. Naruto.
Thank you, Mr. Sato.
The enemy always appears larger than life, but you'll appear exactly the same to the enemy.
All right then, here goes.
You've kept us waiting long enough. Your answer, counsel. Now.
The person who colluded with Mr. Drebber in order to carry out this wicked crime is Scotland Yard's coroner, Dr. Courtney Scythe.
What the blazes are you talking about, Dr. Scythe?
The head of the forensic investigation team, and the coroner who conducted the autopsy on the victim?
We know there were two bird cages, so who could have carried out the switch to complete the illusion? The accident happened in front of a huge crowd of spectators, and the area was immediately sealed off. Then everyone, police officers included, were banished to make way for the forensic investigation team. When else could the switch have occurred? It can only have been in that team's presence. It's essential that the court determines exactly what happened following the incident. The defense demands that Dr. Scythe be summoned to the witness stand at once to testify. That is a bold claim. That is indeed a bold claim.
You've got a nerve, lad!
Standing up there, dragging the y'all's name through the mud.
I didn't mean to.
I know the woman very well. There's no better dead room worker up there. How dare you? Call her a criminal!
My learned friend's imagination appears to be wilder than the East End at night. But the recklessness of your accusation aside, there's another grave problem with your argument. One which the prosecution demands you to address at once.
A grave problem?
Oh my word.
Who do you claim acted as the victim's doppelganger?
What?
Certainly if the birdcage containing the body of the victim was exchanged for another, that cage must also have contained a body.
And yet, no missing persons or accidental deaths of anyone even remotely resembling the victim have been reported. Which means there was no one, dead or alive, who could have fulfilled the role of a body double for Mr. Asman.
Oh, that's true. If my argument is that there were two bird cages, then there must also have been one person inside each. But I don't know if we've got an answer to this yet, have I? What can I do to reveal how this body was was achieved? Well, what are we supposed to do here? I think we are we know that the waxwork figurine was stolen, right? I know it's a little far-fetched. What do you guys think? I think it's actually that was stolen from Madame Taspa's special exhibit. So the whole figurine was stolen. So I'm gonna present evidence. I'm gonna present that head. Very well. The defense will address my learned friend's concerns by presenting evidence that reveals the true nature of Mr. Asman's body double.
Good gracious, evidence? I do hope this isn't filibustering, counsel. The court is expecting a name.
If you think you have relevant evidence, present it now.
The body double and the birdcage were hiding inside the balloon that was floating above the stage, which means that any witnesses would only have seen them from 60 feet away. So, who was it that appeared out of the explosion some 80 meters above the spectators? Aha! The body double inside the second birdcage was... And this is where we present the waxwork head.
Take that!
We know that the victim, Mr. Asman, was in the birdcage that was situated inside the kinesis machine on stage, and therefore he couldn't have been inside the second birdcage. Instead, that contained something else. What's been described as a body double, which is what fell from the sky and crashed into the crystal tower.
Yes, counsel, according to your somewhat elaborate versions of events.
And that body double inside the second birdcage was in fact...
It's alright, Mr. Naruto. You're ready for this. Just steel yourself and come out with it.
Thank you, Mr. Sato. I needed that. As I was saying, the body double inside the second birdcage was, as unbelievable as may seem, the thing there.
Objection!
Open your eyes and look into mine, my Nipponese friend. Now tell me, what are you playing at?
Stand firm now, Ryunosuke. This is the time to show your Japanese spirit. As the court will observe, this is a waxwork model. A model, in fact, of an infamous London murderer from 10 years ago, the Professor.
Objection!
You started by indicting the leader of the forensic investigation team as an accomplice in this crime. And now you've moved on to indicting Waxworks?
Yes, that's about the size of it.
But why? And why this waxwork? It looks nothing like the victim. In fact, it could hardly resemble him less. What possible justification can you give?
If you want to know why, ask Mr. Drebber.
What?
Just days before Professor Harebrained performed his public demonstration, Mr. Drebber abducted this model from Madame Tussbel's.
Did you say abducted?
And 2 days after the incident at the Great Exhibition, he returned it to the museum.
Then the timing?
Is this true, Mr. Drebber?
At first, I couldn't see why Mr. Drebber would have stolen the waxwork and then giving it back. But now the reason is clear. He took it so that he could put it inside the second birdcage as a body double for Mr. Asman.
God!
Objection!
Are you hearing this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Are you hearing the defense's astonishing proposal? That the witness fabricated this vast machine with the intention of deceiving some wretched scientist. That he did it so in collusion with the country's finest corona, on a public stage, in front of a vast audience. And that, to effect the deception, he used a waxwork model that in no way resembles the victim. Are we really to believe this far-fetched tale? What do you decide?
Objection!
Wait! Yes, if you put it like that, of course it sounds implausible.
My lord! I need to speak if you please. Go ahead, Mr. Foreman. Myself and my colleagues have reached an agreement. Very good. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings for the court to hear now.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty! Guilty!
Guilty.
Kill me!
So, as indicated by the foreman, the jury has reached a consensus.
I knew that was going to happen.
We shall get through this, Mr. Naruto, as we always do. And uncover some new truths along the way, I'm quite sure.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to have to appeal to the jurors as usual and see if I can persuade them to change their minds.
The defense will now embark on a summation examination. Are you and your fellows ready to proceed, Mr. Foreman? We are, my lord. Very well. In that case, I ask you now to state clearly for all present to hear the grounds on which each of you has decided that the defendant is guilty of the crime of which he is charged.
Oh, what a ride, guys! But, I mean, you know what's going to happen. The jurors' contentions, we have breached the half-hour mark quite considerably, actually. So, if you want to know if we are able to sway the jurors or not, you'll have to tune in next time for the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Resolve. See you then.